So it's mean of Buddha to us, it seems to me, to point out, well, I'm sorry, Robina, when you get all the nice things, it's just a subtler level of suffering, honey. And you kind of feel like, well, what choice do I have? And this is the interesting point. Again, my way of putting it. When we understand what Buddha is referring to, because in a sense he's saying, well, listen, you guys, the best you can do to get happiness is to get an object of the senses. And he's saying, well, you know, better than nothing maybe, but what he gets us to see, which is really hard to see, but is in a sense really easy to see, but because we don't know any other method, it makes us very depressed to see it, is that moment of pleasure, triggered by the gorgeous husband, triggered by the baby, triggered by the nice praise, triggered by the money in the bank, triggered by the cake, it changes. It stops. It doesn't last. Now this is scientific fact, but it's very depressing for us to hear this, because the fact is we know it doesn't last, but the thing is we desperately wish it would. We frantically hope it will last. That's what we do, as grasping at things as permanent. We know the happiness doesn't last. We know that we're going to get old and get pains and the husband will be mean to us or whatever. It's not being cynical. It's a fact. If you've got masses of virtue, if you have got masses of merit from a past life, you will get lots of good feelings and you will be fairly content. And that means you've given up lots of attachment. So things will make you be fairly content anyway. That's called happiness. That's fantastic. But the normal view we have of happiness is what Buddha refers to as this more nuanced, subtler level of suffering, which is that eventually it will change into what? The first kind of suffering. So, okay, I'll say one more thing here, then I'll go back to it. So basically what Buddha's saying is, well, listen, guys, I've got a method for you. I've got a method to get happiness that won't change. This is all he's saying. And that is his method. So this is the point. Basically, we think happiness is what we get when attachment gets what it wants. This is the default view. This is the assumption in our minds every second. We think happiness is what we get when attachment gets what it wants. Buddha's saying, no, you got it wrong, babies. He's saying, guess what? Happiness is what you end up with when you give up attachment. So basically, for the junkie, happiness is when you get the fix. Anybody with half a brain can observe how nightmarish that is. So on the simple level, anybody who's been an alcoholic knows that the happiness comes when you give up being an alcoholic, when you give up attachment to alcohol. That's what's left, happiness, relatively speaking. And that's all Buddha's saying. Relatively speaking, all we think of now as happiness is when you get the sense objects. That's the only method we know. And we spend our lives driven by this craving, which is called normal in the world, not like considered like a monster. So basically what Buddha's saying is attachment is being a junkie, and it's just a question of degree. So the assumption of attachment is that the feeling that's triggered, which is called a pleasant feeling, that's what we mean by happiness. And the only way we know how to trigger pleasant feelings is to get us object of the senses. So all Buddha's saying is, what we don't understand, what he's telling us is what he's found, that by giving up the delusions, giving up attachment, giving up anger, giving up all the rubbish, and all the way to giving up ego grasping, what is left, and this is not meant to be cosmic, this is literal, what's left is your pure consciousness that is naturally blissful all the time. All the time. It's the natural state of all minds when they're unencumbered by delusions to be blissfully, joyfully happy all the time. These are the literal words, but we can't hear it, because we think, oh, that's nirvana, that must be heaven or something. No, right now. That's the natural state of our mind. That's the natural state of our mind when it's unencumbered by delusions. That's all Buddha's found. And when you realize emptiness, it will never change into suffering. Doesn't mean it won't change. Everything is changing. It's natural. Subtle impermanence is the way everything is. It's constantly changing in its nature. But the change here, that he refers to the suffering of change in the second one, which is referring to what we call happiness. All he's pointing out, which we know, is that it won't last. The pleasure that the cake triggers, we absolutely know scientifically, will turn into the suffering of being full. The happiness triggered by being young and beautiful will turn into the suffering of being old and wrinkled and cranky and bad bones. I mean, thinking simply. So the problem isn't the cake. The problem isn't the wrinkled old body. The problem is the attachment, the craving, the junkie for only the nice feelings. So it's a nightmare that we've set ourselves up to have, you know. So by giving up attachment, what's left is naturally blissful. You don't have to add. We think happiness is what you get when you find something and you inject it into us. He says, no, happiness is what's left when you've given up attachment. And this is what we can taste even in meditation. I mean, I remember my friend Venerable Rene, a Swiss monk. He's been a serious meditator of 30 plus years. And I interviewed him more than 20 years ago from Mandala about one of his first serious retreats in getting single-pointed concentration. And this is the point, you just read any of the great Hindu yogis, what they talk about. What he did was he got to about the 5th of the 9 stages of single-pointed concentration, which is you've subdued the grosser level to some extent. So just naturally, by doing this technique, which you amazing Indians invented 3,000 years ago, just by doing this technique, by subduing the crazy levels of conceptuality and sensory consciousness, going beyond the grosser level of our own consciousness and beginning to even taste the subtler level of our own consciousness, when it's subdued at this subtler level. And he said he just touched upon the 5th of the 9 stages. He said something like this: Robina, the bliss that I experienced in my own mind was infinitely superior to any bliss I'd ever experienced through the senses. So this is a practical point that all the Hindus found, that Buddha has found. But our trouble is you get so caught up in that bliss, you think you've found, you think you've found liberation. That's where he disagrees. It's just the beginning. It happens to be a bonus. But it's pointing out the point that I'm making here, Buddha's practical point, that even when the mind is temporarily freed of the grosser delusions, it is naturally blissful. Bliss is not some mysterious thing like a gift you get from somebody. It's the natural state of our own consciousness, even when it's temporarily free of delusions. So what he's saying is that's not enough, because it'll eventually run out. But eventually when you realise emptiness, then it will never, ever, ever change back into suffering. It can't, because you've cut the root of suffering. So the second kind of suffering is what we call happiness. And it's what we get when we get what attachment wants. And he calls it the suffering of change. And it's evident it doesn't last. But because we don't know any other method to get happy, then it's too painful to hear that. That's why we're such junkies. We're all junkies. Being in samsara, we are junkies. It's as simple as that. And that's where the materialist view says attachment's normal. Well, Buddha says it's mental illness. It's a delusion. It's attachment. It's addiction. It's junkie. We're all junkies. It's just a question of degree, and it's just a question of the object. That's all. This is samsara. So giving up attachment is what brings bliss and happiness. Of course, that's why it's hard. Unbelievably hard. This is so subtle, so nuanced. Just this, you know. And this is not even mentioning the third kind of suffering, all pervasive suffering. Even more subtle, even more abstract. Never mind that one now. So, when we understand this kind of suffering for ourselves in the wisdom wing, that means we realise, we look at the world now, we go to the compassion wing and we go, oh my God, look at all, and okay, sorry, we know what suffering is, first noble truth. And now we go to the second noble truth and we know why we're suffering. My karma my actions and my delusions. So you take responsibility. You now got renunciation. You now realise you're the cause of the ridiculous rubbish, and you also know you're the cause of the happiness. So you, like, already you're an amazing being. You stop being a victim. You stop blaming others. You stop being a craven junkie. You give up all these ridiculous rubbish. You become this powerful, marvellous, content, wise, content person. That's just from renunciation. Now you look at others. So you see all the people being harmed. The first kind of suffering. You have compassion because you know why they're suffering now. They caused it themselves. Then you see all the people harming them. And you have even more compassion for them because they were the victims of the past life and now they're going to suffer unbearably in the next lives. And then you see all the rich people. And you have compassion for them because they've got the suffering of change. And then you see all the, and so then you include every sentient being now and you go, oh my God, we're all in the same boat. This is unbearable. And every one of them is the source of their own suffering. Every one of them doesn't realize it. They say the compassion of the bodhisattvas for us is based, not forget emptiness, is based on the fact that we're completely ignorant of cause and effect. We're all like these schizophrenic maniacs blaming everybody else on earth for our happiness and our suffering like crazy people. That's the reason to have such compassion. But we will not have that compassion for others until we have it for ourselves. And that's renunciation. That's what we learn from the four truths for the noble ones. Then compassion makes sense. Then compassion can be vast. Not just for your baby and a few dogs, you know. So it's one step at a time. Incremental. So let's finish these verses for the sake of it, just for the auspiciousness, okay? So this next one, you see all the maniacs, you see all the psychos, and you found a precious treasure. Why? Because they're like an atomic bomb on your delusions, your self-cherishing, and you can only have the most unbearable compassion for them because they're causing their own suffering. That's why they harm others. Unbearable. For me, it's like a compassion of a mother for her alcoholic kid. You can see, everybody else can't stand this alcoholic kid. He vomits everywhere. He's a pain in the bum to be around. But the mother, she can see he's harming himself, and that's the point of compassion. We are all harming ourselves. When we get that from the first noble truth, from the wisdom wing, then it is not difficult to have compassion for the mean people. But you've got to go one step at a time, because it's based on understanding karma, you know, and delusions. So the next one is getting closer to home, okay? This seems to be like at work. Out of envy, when people mistreat me or abuse me or insult me, I'll accept defeat and offer the victory to them. This is intense. We all have this. People turn against us. People blame us. People accuse us. Well, take the blame and offer the victory to them. This is outrageous. This is shocking, this one. Just incredible, you know. So hard to do this one. And again, like all these things, they're all contextual. They're all relative. You've got to know when to apply these different tools. It's not blanket, you know. You've got to know when to say, when not to say, when to act. Use your wisdom. Just common sense. The third one is even more outrageous. This seems to me when it's close to home now. You know, when someone whom I've benefited and in whom I have great hopes. It means your beloveds, your children, your husband, your mummy, your aunties, your beloveds. They give you terrible harm. They turn against you, you know. I'll regard that person as my precious guru. I mean, these are insane advice, you know. And the next verse is Tonglen. This is where Tonglen came from. In short, both directly and indirectly, I will offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I'll give everything, thinking in my mind. And you can do this in meditation, you know, where you imagine giving everything good to the suffering person. And then I will secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. And so this is an attitude, totally every second, of course, but one can do it formally in meditation, where you use your breath, you know. You visualize, you start with a person with a headache. When you breathe in, you visualize breathing in upon yourself, their suffering. When you breathe out, you visualize giving them your happiness. So this is not a healing technique. This is not meant to be that you should get a headache. That's ridiculous. It's you using the visualization of somebody you know or indeed your enemies eventually. People go spend years in retreat doing this. And you're using this person to help you develop this extra level of compassion. So as I said before, compassion is may you not suffering. Then the next level of compassion, this amazing, unique level of the compassion of the Bodhisattva, is the one of personal responsibility, as His Holiness calls it, great compassion. What can I do to take it away? And you could say that Tonglen is like another level on top. So you see a person with a headache, oh my God, that suffering's terrible. Great compassion, what can I do to help? Tonglen, you know what? I'd rather have the headache than you. That's great. This is Tonglen. It's insane, you know. It's outrageous. And it's like an atomic bomb on ego grasping and on, of course, self-cherishing.
But why do you say it's not taking the other person's headache?
Well, it's not a healing technique. It's not a healing technique.
It's not a healing technique. No.
So you're not trying to get a headache. That's ridiculous.
No, but things I've always had a problem accepting to be able to get there, because it's like saying I'm really prepared to take your physical.
That's right, precisely. That's the point. That's exactly. You just said it right. There you go. There you go. It's this outrageous, courageous attitude that if I could, I would rather have the suffering than you. That's exactly what Tonglen is.
Okay.
So what can't how? So what's the problem then? How can you? There's a really interesting point. There's such confusion. What do you think it means?
I just feel I don't know if I would ever get there. It takes so much courage to really be willing to take the suffering of the other.
Of course it is. That's why it's an outrageous practice.
But why did you just say it's not really meaning that you will take the headache?
Sweetheart, what I've said is, no, I didn't say that.
Sorry, okay.
I said the goal of this is not to get a headache.
I mean, if you did, wouldn't you?
Okay, no, darling. So you don't. So this is a common misunderstanding. You're just not hearing it properly, and that's okay. Let me explain. Try and be very. This is okay. Where are you going?
I'm sitting. It's a bit cold.
Oh, okay. So listen. What this meditation technique called Tonglen is about, based upon all these years of practice, all the wisdom wing, all understanding your own suffering, understanding your mind, getting realizations, getting renunciation, developing equanimity, developing the kindness of the mother, all these things. It's progressive, it's incremental, step by step, step by step by step. This is the most outrageous, most advanced, most outrageous level of practice that will be the one that will culminate in bodhicitta. So already it is an insane level of compassion we're talking about. So have you heard, I've heard mothers and fathers say when they see their child suffering, I wish it was me and not them. Have you heard that? That's Tonglen, honey. It's that level of such compassion that you would rather give your life than this person have the suffering. That's what it means. Of course it's high. You're totally right to say that. But the aim isn't to sit there and breathe in and hope you get a headache. That's plain ridiculous. The aim isn't, the proof of it is not to get a headache, it's to act that if you could, you would rather. So what you're doing is you're training yourself to develop that level of courage, to genuinely from your heart imagine if you could, you would. You see, it's all you're doing is using that visualization of that person and this thinking to put an atomic bomb on self-centeredness. That's all. Can you not hear that?
I can hear it. I'm just saying that it's so difficult.
Well, of course it is. That's the point, and the fact that you see that is good because you're treating it with respect. Many people go, oh, I'd love to Tonglen, oh, I love Tonglen. I don't think they realise what they're saying. That's why it's so shocking. All these techniques are shocking if you analyse the words carefully. No wonder they were kept secret because they're so against the normal world. Do you understand my point? So you're absolutely right. And that's why all we can do is start pretending. So this is the point. These pretending, practice is faking it till you make it, isn't it? When you hop on a bike when you're 3 years old, you can't ride a bike. Don't be ridiculous. You're on one side, you're off the other. But you don't say, oh, I can't ride a bike and give up. Guess what you do? You persevere. And before you know it, you can ride a bike. Well, that's what these meditations are about. People go for years to do this. So let me tell you this story. I think we'll end with this story. I love this story. Our friend Harry, he's an American. And everybody who knows him says, oh, Harry's a bodhisattva. Harry's a bodhisattva. And when you meet him, he's this jolly, now he's older now, because I've known him for years. And he's very tubby, with a big beard, and he's like a jolly grandfather. He's like a jolly fellow. When you meet him, he's like a jolly, happy fellow. He's always there, he sweeps the floor and does the dishes. He's like a kind, friendly fellow. As for bodhisattva, what does that mean, But this story, I think he must be. You listen to this story. I like this story. Okay, we're going to finish with this story. So years ago, my throat, I know I can't help it, it just gets croaky. So years ago he was at Kopan, this must be 25 years ago, he was at Kopan Monastery, Lama Zopa's monastery in, Kathmandu. And he was preparing to go, he's got a cave, he's meditated the last 30, 40 years, he's meditated up in the Solukhumbu area, and he's got a cave up there. Many of my friends meditate up there. So he was planning to go again to meditate. It's like a 10-day walk, a 2-week walk or something from Kathmandu. So he was planning to go. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche heard he was going, and he said he had a dream that Harry would die, and to then then to tell him not to go. Well, my first comment here is Lama Zopa Rinpoche doesn't ever sleep. So I'm just thinking he's being humble here, and it must have been his clairvoyance, because he's obviously got clairvoyance, but he has been humble, so he said he had a dream. So secondly, then he discovered Harry had already left. It was too late, they didn't have mobile phones in those days. So then he asked Geshe Lama Kontrog, this yogi I've mentioned a few times, who lived up in the caves for years, no food, no sleep, lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land, a highly realised being, the one who said about the fisherman, or that guy, that one, that holy Lama, Geshe Lama Kontrog. So Lama Zopa told Geshe Lama Kontrog to pray for Harry. That's what happened. So anyway, I met Harry years later, and I asked him, I'd heard this story, the nun who was with him must have told people what she had observed, and then Harry told me exactly what happened, which I think is very beneficial to hear about it, So this is the story. He's going up the mountains, and up there it's really treacherous. I've never been. I'm going in April, leading a trek, to go to Lama Zopa's place, to raise money for Laudo, this place. So I've never been up there. So it's a really treacherous walk in some of those areas. And there he is, walking up the mountain with his big pack. And he said there are 4 Sherpas coming down, 4 porters, with their big packs. So I had a friend who did this for a while. He said, Robina, all you do is see your feet for 10 days. This massive pack, you're bent over like this and you see your feet. That's all he saw. So these roads are really treacherous, way up in those mountains. People fall over regularly. The porters fall down and, fall down 1,000 feet into the valley, because these cliffs are really, these mountains are very treacherous. That's what I've heard. So he's walking up this really intense bit, and then suddenly 4 Sherpas appear. It must be very close and very intense. So Harry said to me, my first thought was, oh, okay, 4 of them, 1 of me, so I'll step to the side. So he stepped to the edge of the cliff. Now, first of all, before we go further, this is the commentary. Nobody normal who's never done any meditating, who's never done Tonglen, who's never practiced bodhicitta, who's never thought about emptiness, who doesn't look at their mind, that's not natural, is it? Are you seeing what I'm saying? You would have fear and panic, you would stand against the mountain, and you would hope the 4 Sherpas won't fall off the mountain. That would be called instinct for survival. Is that not normal? Would it be? If it's your beloved babies, maybe you'd stand by the edge and save them, because that's natural. But so it wasn't. So this is the thing, when we study all these techniques about how to get bodhicitta, and I didn't go through any of it, much of it, there's all these different ways you use logic to argue with ego's misconception. Spontaneous thought was, I'll step to the side. His next thought, because it was so intense, these 4 Sherpas coming, his next thought, he said, was, if they knock me, I won't hold on. Now that's even more insane, right? Means he's prepared to give his life for 4 strangers. So indeed, the thing was so intense, they knocked him. And he is falling, he said. His feet are on the ground. He's got his pack. It's pulling him, okay? His feet stay on the ground. And he said, I had a psychic vision of the entire fall. I saw my body crash to the ground. So he's falling, and he's not holding on to the Sherpas. So he said, then I felt the hands of Geshe Lama Kontrog strongly pushing me, and I reversed direction and fell into the Sherpas. So I like that story. So the first part, his spontaneous thought, 4 of them, 1 of me, and then his thought, if they knock me, I won't hold on. This is logical. There is no way in the universe spontaneously for 4 strangers that thought would occur naturally in a person who hasn't worked on their mind. So we have to deduce that his years of practice, realizing emptiness, having actually accomplished bodhicitta, so when the Nibbana comes, so if he's asked to sweep the floor, he'll sweep the floor. When he does the dishes, he does the dishes. But here, this level, he's actually, a spontaneous thought arises because he really has put his money where his mouth is, and these 4 strangers are more precious than him. This is the proof of the pudding. And that would not happen if you haven't meditated for years. That's what meditation is you're practicing. You're faking it till you make it. And the proof of the pudding is, and he wasn't being a drama queen about it. And the other bonus is, that's the power of the holy beings. When you have that amount of merit, the holy beings, the Buddhas, can manifest wherever you like to benefit you, to save lives, to do a so-called miracle. So I find that story very powerful on many levels. So of course, way to go, honey. Even to do Tonglen is shocking. But there's the proof of the pudding. Practice makes perfect, you know. So I like that story. I think we finish on that note. We aim slowly, slowly, one step at a time. So we think over all this weekend, or however many days we've been, and all these days and these weeks, this evening, the weekend, all these thoughts, all these teachings, all these concepts coming from Lord Buddha, coming from the mouths of my holy teachers. This is where I've heard these things, from His Holiness, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Lama Yeshe, all my gurus. They're my lineage. So I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is. I don't know how far I've got, but I can say the words. I'm happy to say the words. I'm very happy to say the words. And I'm very glad you come, because I'd like to hear these words too. So you give me a great opportunity to speak to myself, to try to practice. So with sincerity, we never give up. We know we have this potential. We have these marvellous beings in front of us who show us it's possible. So we think maybe we become like them. May we become our own Buddha, no matter how long it takes, on the basis of all these marvellous seeds we planted, develop our incredible potential, never give up. As His Holiness says, Bodhisattvas think in terms of eons. And that all these seeds, all these thoughts we've had, not one has gone astray. We might not remember 95% of what we've heard, but every thought has gone in. Every thought we've had has left seeds. So we think, how amazing. May we nourish these seeds with our effort from this second forward. So we do become a Buddha. So we can be of benefit to sentient beings. And then may compassion, bodhicitta, grow and grow in the hearts of all. Jamchub semchog rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyuchig ke pa nyampa me payang gong ne gong du pabashog. May His Holiness and all our lamas live long. Gangri rawe korwe jingam die pendang dewa malu jongwene chenre zigwang tenzin gyatso yi shape site bardu tengyu chik. Okay, thank you, everybody.
So with profound gratitude, I would like to express our appreciation for all the effort that you have put in this course. And I'm sure it has benefited all of us. So thank you very much.
Pleasure, darling. I'm so happy to be here at Tushita again. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, precious one.
Thank you.
Thank you, darlings. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for having me, Renuka. Thank you very much.